Afternoon, everyone. We're doing something this week in the Senate that is a bit unusual, that we haven't done in a while. We're actually teeing up an appropriations bill to vote on the floor and have an amendment process. We're going to try and get consent. We're going to be on the Milcon VA legislative appropriations bill, and then hoping that we can get consent to add a couple of other bills into the package so that we can be voting on appropriations bills for the first time in a long time. And the reason I say that is because, as you all know, last year when Chuck Schumer was running the Senate, the Appropriations Committee reported out 11 of the 12 appropriations committees, or appropriations bills, I should say, all with bipartisan support, and not a single one of them was put on the floor for a vote. So we're fixing to change that. We think that there ought to be a regular appropriations process around here. The Democrats have indicated, because they're so upset over the rescissions bill last week, which, by the way, cut 0.1% of all federal spending, that somehow they can use that as an excuse to shut down the appropriations process and therefore shut down the government. We think that would be a big mistake, and hopefully they will think better of it and work with us. And we're trying to give them what they've been asking for, is a bipartisan appropriations process, which, frankly, I think a lot of us around here think is long overdue. The other thing I want to mention quickly is the nominations process. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversations around that here lately, and the thing that strikes me, again, about the Democrats' behavior relative to nominations is a little data point, and that data point is that President Trump will be the first president in history not to have a single one of his nominees confirmed either by voice vote or unanimous consent, which is typically what happens around here, particularly with nominees that have pretty broad bipartisan support, which a lot of these nominees that we're trying to advance do. So this is clearly an attempt to block and delay and obstruct. It is an example of Trump derangement syndrome on steroids, and it's unfortunate, because there are a lot of people out there who've been nominated to positions in our government that frankly need to be filled. They're important positions that need to be filled, and the Democrats continue to try and delay and obstruct. So we're going to keep grinding and work as hard as we can on the Republican side if we're not going to get any cooperation from the Democrats to get the president's team in place.
Leader, do you expect to cut short the August recess in order to, on the president's request, process these nominations? And the difficulty you're facing on appropriations, it looks like it's going to be a meat grinder to get the 60 votes you need on each of these bills. Are we looking at another CR situation in September?
Well, I would say that's going to be, I think, largely up to the Democrats. I hope we can get 60 votes, yes. It's not easy around here getting 60 votes on anything, but we've said before that if there's anything in the Senate that ought to be bipartisan, it's the appropriations process and getting back to regular order on that. So we'll see where the votes are. At this point, I'm hesitant to predict that. And with respect to the August recess, that really is a function of, again, whether or not the Democrats are willing to cooperate and help us get some of these nominees through the pipeline. So we're keeping those options on the table, honestly, because there's just a lot of stuff we have to get done.
As you know, Republicans are deeply divided over Jeffrey Epstein. Speaker Johnson shut down the House floor to avoid dealing with it. What do you think the Senate should do here, especially now that the Oversight Committee in the House subpoenaed, or wants to, Ghislaine Maxwell? Well,
I've said this before, and I will defer to our committee chairs. But as a personal matter, I've said this, I believe that the President and the Attorney General will make the right decisions there with regard to that. But again, if we have committee chairs who think it makes sense, then I'll leave that to their discretion.
What do you say to some of your members who now want to undo parts of the big beautiful bill, such as the Medicaid cuts or the gambling tax? Is that going to happen?
No. The big beautiful bill, and once we get an opportunity to get out there and talk about it, I think is going to be a big winner with the American people. And there are component parts of it that are, I think they're going to be hugely popular. And as I've said before, the target of this was middle-income families, working Americans, and I think they are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of the benefits of this bill. And I think we're going to have an opportunity, hopefully, to get out and start talking about it, their views on that are going to be, I think our views on that are going to be confirmed by what the American people think. So, but on that particular issue, there are members out there who are saying we'd like to do this or that differently. That's always the case. This was a big piece of legislation that had a lot of moving parts. Not everybody got everything they wanted, but at the end of the day, it's historic in its breadth and the things that it addresses, from border security to national security to energy dominance to tax relief for working families to historic savings in terms of the budget reforms that we made. Those are all things that are long overdue, and I think those things are all, in the end, as we get out there to talk about it, are going to be very popular with the American people.
Realistically, is the sanctions bill that Graham has likely to get a vote before recess, given all these nominations and other things that you guys have?
It would be, it's as you can tell, and I've said this before, but the coin of the realm in the Senate is floor time. There's a finite amount of it, and obviously it takes a lot of time to do anything around here, which we're going to find out now when we try to move on the appropriations process, and the nominations are also a very high priority for us. But Russia's sanctions, when it's ready to go, with the right bipartisan support, which I think exists, there are 85 co-sponsors on that bill, we ought to be able to expedite consideration of that on the floor. And I'm ready to do that. Again, we're working, trying to coordinate with the White House to ensure that when we do it at a time that makes sense in terms of their negotiations to try and facilitate a peaceful outcome with respect to Ukraine and Russia. So it's on our radar screen, and when it's time to go, we'll be ready to go. Thank you all.
Are you